call on the National Orientation Agency and other relevant authorities to carry out adequate sensitization on the dangers involved in these hazardous practices. Call on the Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Disaster Management and the National Emergency Management Agency, NOA, to provide relief materials, to the victims of the inferno, that is the survivors. Those in support of prayer one say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it.
So the unfortunate incident, the numbers are still adding, just keeps going up. So this morning, some are reporting 153 casualties in that incident, unfortunately. Well, yes, you heard the President of the Senate refer to the NOA, and so we've got the Director General joining us virtually this morning. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on the program today.
Yeah, good morning, Chamberlain. Good morning, Maupe. Good morning, viewers.
Yeah, so earlier in our opening sequence, we did wonder, I mean, just as the Senate also highlighted partly there, this is not the first time, and probably, who knows, if this kind of scenario happens again, you may see this number of people, almost the same kind of herd mentality that we see around tanker spills, and something really is wrong in terms of how we respond or react, how we conduct ourselves around these kind of incidents. So the President of the Senate is of the opinion that the NOA, you have a role here. So what do you say to this?
Yeah, I could see you're asking a question, but the sound is not coming through. So I didn't hear a thing.
How about now? Is it better now?
I'm sure there's a technical issue there.
Okay.
You may want to check. I didn't hear anything. The sound is off.
Oh, okay. We'll double check that and just see. But can you hear anything now?
No, I can hear you clearly now.
All right. So just as the President of the Senate did say there, he's asking the NOA to go in there and do a job, because it's seeing clearly how we conduct ourselves around accidents, scenes, scenarios like this really leaves a lot to be desired. So how do you respond to the Senate's directive?
Yeah, well, that's what you would expect when things like this happen. There has to be some immediate measure. But I think at this period of this unfortunate incident that is still unfolding, what is important is how to ensure that we reduce this calamity as much as possible, and ensure that those who have survived but in critical conditions are attended to, and the immediate family and the community is supported in a way that they will find some relief. The issue on ground is beyond just enlightenment or sensitizing people. That's why in the last 1 year, we understand the need for value orientation. This is about our values. You know, I don't know how we got to this stage that you know, the complaint we had in the past was how people had no reason to even do damages to things that belong to the country. But now we have gone to the extent of not even having empathy for ourselves. We should first, consider the fact that the products, the petrol itself, the PMS that spilled over, belong to somebody. That's a misfortune that has befallen a business concern. And the typical Nigerians, in the past, would rather be showing empathy to the person who has lost his product and his investment. Not to talk of even now trying to take advantage of somebody that has this kind of misfortune. So it's about our values. And it's not just about this fuel thing. It's so unfortunate that this number of people will have to lose their life, over this kind of thing. And it's not about poverty. It's about our values. It is the same reason why somebody would go and steal something that belongs to the public. You go to the Third Mainland Bridge, remove the relay list and sell. You go to the rail track and remove the track and sell. You know, it's about our attitude, you know, to things like this. Because how much fuel would anybody get from this? And we have the experience. You know, they say experience is the best teacher. We've had this happen before. So how much enlightenment does anybody need other than, you know, seeing this kind of thing happen and see how people have lost their lives in numbers in the past, and that we still did this. But we cannot be blaming the dead. You know, we have to talk about the living. So we have to talk about how we need to have a new orientation in terms of how we see life, how, you know, the duty of care that we must have for ourselves. You know, I think the consideration for any citizen, first and foremost, is to consider that somebody has lost an investment, you know, and the empathy should follow. And even if you're not going to show empathy, you should not seek to take advantage of the misfortune of your fellow citizen. You know, so, but you know, this is not the time to address issues like this because it's a national money. You know, so we are in a state of mourning, and we should be concerned about how to ensure that we mitigate whatever damage, you know, and ensure that those who have survived and need help are provided help. So we can.
Pardon me. I imagine that ever since you assumed office, yourself and the team must have done a lot of analysis, SWOT analysis in terms of how you want to approach your job, what you should do, when you should do it, where, and how to go about all of those. So could you talk to us then? Has it always been like this? Have we always responded to issues like this? Because many talk about previous days, well, I know many remember MAMSA and the kind of orientation we had. So has it always been a challenge? When do you think things changed? And in terms of how you approach it, is it easy yet difficult, or what for you?
Yeah, well, we have to understand that the audience landscape has changed. The population of 1989, 1990, 91 is not the same population we have. The media landscape is not the same thing. You are talking of an era that it was better for you to go from community to community with a mounted public address system. You can't do that now. You have 70% of your population who are below the age of 35. Many of them are on the social media. You have people who are more organized now. You have associations through which you can reach people. These are the methods we are using now. But beyond that, what we have done in the last 1 year is to ensure that we do not paper over this issue. We don't continue to just, you know, go on radio, go on TV without providing lasting solution to this value matter. So what we have done is to ensure that we have come up with a blueprint on a value reorientation. And thankfully, we have to thank Mr. President. Just about 2 weeks ago, the last Federal Executive Council meeting, so all our prayers were approved.
Okay, pardon me to jump in there.
All our prayers.
But when they listen to you now, it comes across to people as though you're addressing the wider generality of the population with what you just said in this context. But when these kind of things happen, many usually expect to see first responders, those officers who are supposed to arrive early and cordon off the area. But more often than not, we don't see that. It's by the time they usually arrive, a lot has happened. So are you considering doing something, reaching out to those, perhaps if they arrive earlier than they usually do in many of these cases, maybe the people might just think, okay, this is how things should be. Let's not go there because people might already got there before us. And so if that happens, they might just subconsciously know that is the way to go.
Yeah, well, see, that's a lot for us to do as a country in all of this issue of safety. You know, from road safety to whatever you want to consider. There's a lot for us to do. Take, for instance, the kind of thing that we see in this country. Only a few countries in the world, you see truck carrying such dangerous item going into populated areas. You know, so we must have advanced beyond that stage. So, and we must do something about it. And we also must ensure that those who are responsible for ensuring that the vehicles on the road, especially the ones that are involved in this kind of activities, are fit and proper to be on the road. Because often you have this kind of things happen. You even see those that carry containers, with containers just falling off. Where else do you see that happen? So the whole gamut of the issue of road safety, of being sure that the vehicles on the road are in good condition and are supposed to be on the road. We must take it more seriously. And don't forget that many of our roads are not in good condition. So these vehicles often break down or just fall off, anywhere. So you have many parts of the continent that you see trailers have blocked the road because one trailer just falls off, and then to remove it become an issue. So I agree with you that we have to do something, about the entire issue of safety in all ramifications, to ensure that we must have another way of conveying, dangerous materials like this to wherever they need to go. And I'm sure there are examples all across the world where things like that happen. So the regulatory agencies, it's a part of our responsibility to get feedback to government. And this is the kind of feedback we would be relating with many of these regulatory agencies to ensure that we rethink the way we approach all of these things. We cannot continue like this. So when we talk of the citizens who need to at least, when did it come to that? Nigerians now, we want to take advantage of our own fellow citizens' misfortune. That's one angle. The other angle is to ensure that those of us who are in position to ensure that we mitigate this kind of thing and ensure that it doesn't happen, that we also rise to the occasion. So the issue of safety in all ramifications, we just saw a building collapse in Lagos, and there's evidence that they have been asked to vacate the building. And thankfully, they all escaped. But these are the kind of issues. So it takes both the citizen and the government to do the right thing. And that's why the issue of our value orientation, the National Value Charter that the Federal Executive Council just approved, is not just talking about the citizens. It's also talking about the leadership. And that's why we call it 7 for 7, where each side is taking responsibility for what it has to do to ensure that we make progress in this country.
It's a real unfortunate situation, and it would seem that there is no news media outlet that hasn't, taken up the story. That's the tragedy we're seeing. The tragedy is of great proportions, and international media very interested also in what is happening or what has happened in Jigawa State. Really very, very sad and troubling indeed. But it's not the first time it has happened to us. We have a long history of tanker fire incidents. We also have a history of pipeline explosions. I think the very first time it came to prominence was that of the JC fire incident. I don't know if you recall it. Happened in a small sleepy town in Delta State, somewhere in Ethiopia West or so. And that particular incident took over 1,000 lives. Over 1,000 people lost their lives in that particular incident. And since that time, it would seem that we've been recording one tanker incident after another, one tanker incident after another. So it does appear that we all have our work cut out for us in terms of enlightening our people, because you would think that when something has, caused a disaster in one place, people will learn from it and know not to go, will not want to take the risk. But we've been told that there is a very, there's a very strong link between poverty and desperation. People willing to take the kind of risks that they ordinarily would not take, but for the fact that they're trying to escape poverty. It is interesting. I had a conversation with the Corps Marshal yesterday of the FRSC, and he was telling me about how, incidences are increasing because people are willing to take risks. So even on this tanker now, it's unclear if people were even piled on top of the tanker, or, if people, you find that trucks that are supposed to be carrying maybe goods or carrying animals, you'll find people willing to hitch a ride with those kinds of trucks, posing even more dangers for themselves. How do you think we can navigate this perilous times and let people know that it is not really worth the risk they're about to take with their lives? Do you think that it becomes even more difficult to spread that sort of gospel at this time?
No, you can. We have a responsibility to continue to sensitize Nigerians and enlighten them on all of these issues. Even the issue of poverty, by explaining the kind of policies that government has done and what we need to do, the sacrifices we need to make, and to ensure that we also get feedback to government on what people are saying and how the policies are affecting the people. It's our responsibility to do all of this. But I will still say that beyond that, you see, at what point are you going to ask yourself that poverty, how much danger should I take or expose myself to because of poverty? You know, you have seen this happen. So at the point of, are we so, I have to be careful, but are we so hungry that death appears to be the option, because it's an obvious choice that we have to make. So I think it's an attitudinal issue that has over the years, crept into us. And so we need to address this beyond just the symptoms. All these that we do are symptoms. They are symptomatic of, a deeper issue of attitude, of how we do not have, that duty of care. We do not show duty of care to our fellow citizens anymore. When you see even a truck carrying things that are not dangerous, but products that belong to somebody else, in Nigeria, not to government, you see Nigerians taking advantage and going there to steal this thing in public glare. So this is more attitudinal than whatever, because the just example that you gave, that was several years ago. So how long has this poverty been with us? And to what extent has it driven us to now see death as the obvious choice and the only choice? So I think we must be more holistic in how we handle this issue. And that's why we don't want to paper over it. While we do the enlightenment, we do the sensitization, we have to go deeper to ensure that we give people the kind of orientation that we will know that we must have some self-dignity. We must have some respect for ourselves. We must have some pride in ourselves. I remember those years growing up as a kid in schools. Some of the songs that we were taught about this moral rectitude has to do with, that's a particular song that says, I would rather enslave myself to survive than steal or take something that does not belong to me. So this was how we grew up. All these have been taken away. Our values have been eroded, and we must bring it back. And we must be more concerned about the fact that no matter what situation we find ourselves, we hold our fellow citizens a duty of care.
Let's take this conversation to Lagos.
Thank you, Malkwe. Just one question mainly on my heart, and you've been trying to talk about it, and it's something that I've been looking for online. We've been talking about this National Values Charter, and I know that you said the other time that FEC, approved all of your prayers. What are these charters? What are these values that Nigerians need to embrace? And it's not being palliative now. What are these values, and how do we drill them down to the people? I understand we said that you're taking it to the schools, to be part of their learning processes now. What are these values, and how do people access them online? Can you hear me, Mr. O'Neill? I'm not sure that Mr. O'Neill can hear me. Can you hear me now, sir? Okay. Chamberlain? Okay. Can you hear me now, sir? Okay, well, if you can hear me, the question that I'm asking is, what are the values that you are talking about when the federal government is talking about the National Values Charter? What are these values, and how do people get access to them so that they can embrace it? It's also been said that they're going to be taught in schools. What's the plan?
Oh, fantastic. Well, thankfully, as I said, the last Federal Executive Council has finally approved the National Values Charter. And it's about national identity, as a whole. So what we have been doing, and everybody in every state, now all our staff in all the 36 states and FCT, in the last 10 days, have been on the street. We've had, in all the states, stakeholders engagement, we've had town hall, we've had press conferences, and in all the local government, the 774 local governments, all our staff have been mobilized. They have been doing advocacy visits to traditional rulers, religious leaders to spread this particular news of the values and educate everybody about the value. And this will continue. We are stepping up on this. We go to schools, we go to everywhere, and we are in the media, including the channels. So we are doing all of this because we have the approval now. And on the issue of the citizenship study, which has now become a compulsory subject from primary school to the university, where we are going to learn about values, ethics, and history, roll into this citizenship study. We also got approval for that at the Federal Executive Council, and I must commend the Federal Ministry of Education. Within 3 days after the approval, we sat down, and I can tell you that of the primary school, the curriculum for the primary school is ready. And that is going to be rolled out very soon. And we are already working on that of the secondary school as well. Yeah, because it's about, we must have an identity that tells us that we are important first as individuals.
What are these values? That's the question that I'm asking. What are these values in, if you can just itemize them one after the other?
Okay, now the values, the values have two components. The first one is the responsibility of government to the citizens, which we call the Nigerian promise. And this has 7 pillars. Because in the past, all efforts at value orientation were targeted at the citizens alone. But this time around, it takes the two parties the two sides to come to party, the government and the citizens. So the government is taking responsibility and making certain promises upon which we can hold the government accountable. And these 7 promises includes equality, includes the issue of democracy, includes meritocracy, all the issue of justice, issue of security. There are 7 pillars. And if the government, everybody who has found himself in position of authority, fulfill these 7 promises, you have covered whatever you need to do as government for the citizens. Because we say patriotism cannot be enforced. You must motivate it. It is what people see that will motivate them to be patriotic. And that's why we are not just talking about the citizens. We're also talking about what the country is putting on the table through those who are in positions, of public offices. Then on the flip side, you have what we call the citizen codes. That is the code of conduct of the citizens. And the number 1 item on the 7 items of the citizen code is duty of care. And that's why I've been reiterating the issue of duty of care. That first and foremost, everybody will hold each other that duty of care. And if you go to the hospital,
what is
you expect
interesting,
to get that duty of care.
My apologies, Mr. Isolilu. We've run completely out of time. And I think, just as you have said, the duty of care is number 1, awesome. Get online, you will see people giving, citizen to citizen, giving each other things. And I'm hoping that, that is something that will percolate down, continuously. We definitely have to bring you back to talk about this, Mr. Isolilu, to educate Nigerians more about this thing. Can we safely say then that the education or the orientation has started? Lanre Isolilu, DG, National Orientation Agency, thank you so much for your time this morning.